Okay, that's grand. Listen, it's 2 o'clock, so we'll get started. I know people have busy lives, so let's get started. So first of all, you're all very welcome to this afternoon's webinar. As I said, we've got two objectives of this afternoon's webinar. The first is to kind of briefly explain what social selling is, give you one definition. There's many definitions out there, but we'll give you one definition so you know what social selling is. And then what we're going to do is take you through a playbook of how you could implement a social selling strategy. Now, this is actually a strategy I use for my clients, and this works. So it's well tested. And so we'll take you through it step by step so that you get a good overview of what a social selling strategy is and how you can use it yourself to generate leads for your business. So let's get started. So on the first slide here, I suppose I've got a quote here from Tim Hughes. He's the author of a book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers. And I really like this, this quote you see here on the front. Engaging prospects early and often in the decision cycle is now a prerequisite of modern business, and the battle for attention is fought through subject matter expertise and thought leadership in a non-promotional format. Well, there's a couple of things in here in this quote I just want to draw your attention to, and as we go through this afternoon's webinar, hopefully then they will resonate with you more. First of all is engaging prospects early and often. So it's really what we're talking about here now is using social media to get at people really before they start the decision-making process. And when we engaging with them, it's not through sales pitches. We're engaging with them with our expertise and thought leadership. So we're really bringing value. We're engaging with prospects by bringing value to them, not by trying to sell to them. So by bringing value through our own expertise in the subject matter that you're involved in. So that's what I think is a really good definition of social selling. And that book there from Tim Hughes is well worth a read if you get into it, if you get a chance. Okay, so let's move on. So it says, as I said, hold on. Get this little slide glitch. Okay, so the first question really is, as I said, the first issue we're going to tackle is what is social selling? But really, you can't really talk about social selling before you talk about what has changed and what we could term social buying. And if we can kind of step back and look at how maybe what people call the buyer's journey and how it has changed over the years. And I suppose typically, these are fairly general statements, but I think you'll understand where they're coming from. Typically in the past, there was two ways really a sale was initiated or the buying process was initiated. First of all, a buyer inside a business, a problem could arise that needed solution. And then so the buyer then would reach out to a few salespeople that he or she knew to start talking about the problem and start working your way towards a solution. Or else the sales professional themselves would have a solution and would cold call businesses. Now, I suppose the key thing about this is that there was very few people involved in this process. You had the buyer and the salesperson, and the salesperson really had a lot of the control in this situation because the salesperson had all the knowledge about the problem. He had access to all the knowledge and the buyer really didn't have that access. And the salesperson in many ways acted like a sales consultant to help the buyer fix the problem that they had. But really what they were a sales consultant with an inbuilt bias for their own solution. So there's an issue there obviously for the buyer, but that's the way things worked and it worked reasonably well. But there was always an inherent problem there for the buyer because they understood that the salespeople had an inherent bias for their own solution, even though they appeared to be acting like a sales consultant. Also from the sales professional, cold calling, is a difficult thing to do. It's not something that everybody's good at. A lot of people will say cold calling's dead. I wouldn't say that, but it's becoming more and more difficult and it's not an ideal solution, not an ideal position to be in. So as I said, what was fundamentally wrong with the last scenario we painted was the fact that the salesperson, from the buyer's perspective, the salesperson was taking advice from the buyer was taking advice from the salesperson, but really, the salesperson had a solution in their back pocket that they wanted you to buy. So there's that inherent bias towards that solution. And of course, anytime, when that problem existed, once a solution arrived for that problem, then the buyer obviously jumped at it. And that's really what's happened. Now, the buyers, the people inside companies who are tasked with solving a problem and need to go out and seek a solution, they're not now acting in splendid isolation in their company. They are now have networks through, Facebook, Twitter, but in the case what we're talking about here, in a B2B scenario like LinkedIn, these people are now highly networked. There's a very good chance that they're highly networked, and they're networked to people who are experts in the area of, in the area that they're working in. So they are constantly getting and seeking advice from their network on how things are going on in their business, updates to different products and services, answers to problems that come along. But they're getting all this information from their social network, and this is information that is being given over when there's no sale at stake. So this is unbiased information, and so the trust that comes with this is high, because the buyers know that while they're talking to people who are giving them information, sharing their expertise, but they've nothing to gain from it because there's no sale in place. So the trust that they have in their network is high. And that's a different scenario from where we talked earlier on, where the buyer was kind of getting information from a salesperson, but there might have been an element of lack of trust there, because they kind of knew that the salesperson had an inbuilt bias for their own solution. So now all of a sudden, there's this whole network is now involved. The buyer now has all these people feeding them information, and these are people that they trust. So it seems reasonable now that when the person all of a sudden has a problem and needs a solution, that they will now also go to their network and look for an answer to their problem. And what that really means then is that the salesperson who is in control of the whole buying process up to this, now is losing control, because all these other people are involved in the scenario, and they're bringing unbiased information in. Hold on there a second. I just seem to have a problem with the slide. Can people see that half a slide, or can people see the full slide there? On my screen, I can only see half a slide. If you could maybe pop into the chat box if you can see the full slide there. All right, then thanks Ian. We'll assume the problem's just mine or whatnot. Okay, we'll keep going. So that's what's changed now fundamentally. Now all of a sudden, the seller does not have the control that he once had, or does not have the power that he once had on the buyer's journey, because there's information now. The buyer now has independent access to good quality information, and that has taken the power away from the seller to some extent. So really what social selling is then is a way to get you back in the game on that. Is the way to get you as a seller, is a way for you to get back in the game and for you to have more control over the process, the whole buying process. So really, that's what social selling is. Social selling is a reaction to social buying and whatnot. Okay, now I just have a wee problem here because I seem to have lost that. Oh, grand, we're back. Okay, so here's some stats. So that's what So the important thing to take away here is the social buying or social selling is not a new tactic that you could add to the many tactics you have to sell. It's not something it's in many ways is optional, because social buying is happening, and it's happening now. It might vary from sector to sector, but it's happening now. And social buying is a reaction to that. And if you don't react to it, you can find yourself left out in the cold. So I wouldn't really regard social selling more and more as being an option. I think it's becoming a necessity. Now, here are some stats. So if you want to find, there's plenty of great stats available online. If you do a search on Google, you're looking for social selling by stats, you will find lots of great stats from great sources that will demonstrate to you that, how salespeople that use social selling techniques, how they're hitting their targets and doing better. So I'll not bore you by going through all them stats there, but they're all there for you to go through. So as I said, social selling is a reaction to social buying, and it gets you back in the game. Its function for you as a seller is to get you back in the game. Okay, so that's what social selling is. So now what I'm going to do is take you through a social selling system that you can implement in your own business. Now, as I said, I wish I could claim that I invented this, but I didn't. It comes from a company called Link Selling, linkselling.com. They're based out of the US. And I think the figure there I show in 2016 is the latest figures I had. They generated fees of over $4 million implementing this system on behalf of their clients in the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, and Ireland. So it's a well-tested system. It's a system that's been tested across multiple business sectors. So it's well tested. I'm a sales consultant for Link Selling, but just really confirm that what you're going to hear this afternoon is, it's tried and tested. So, if you think it won't work in your sector, you're probably wrong, because it's been tried and tested in multiple sectors. Now, who does it work for? It works really, I suppose, it works for people, like you can find it once we get into this, that the core of this really is done through LinkedIn. So obviously one requirement for this is that you can find your prospects on LinkedIn, and we'll go through later on how you'll do that. Ideally, you just can't, you just don't want to be able to find your prospects on LinkedIn. You want to be able to find lots of them, hundreds or potentially thousands of them, makes it the better. And, there's a bit of work involved in this. So your customers want to have a good lifetime value, so that, that the work chasing, that the money, that the effort you put in, you'll get a return on your effort. And what will you get out of this? So, like, what's the deliverables that once you implement this strategy? Well, the first thing you're going to have is a network full of people. Once we get at this, you're going to if you don't have a social network now that supports your business, at the end of this you will. And this will be a network full of people that meet the criteria of your ideal prospects. So from here on in, when we talk about prospects, it's not just anybody, they're your ideal prospects. And you're going to have a network full of them. Not only are you going to have a network full of them, but they're going to be aware of you, and you're going to have a certain status inside that network. And that status will be one as an expert, a thought leader, somebody you can trust. So we're bringing that trust, building that trust element in the whole thing. And then also, as the way we implement this, we were looking really to generate regular monthly calls with your network, with these ideal prospects, and that's what we're hoping to deliver as well. So they're the three key deliverables that you're going to get out of this strategy if you implement this strategy in your business. Now, it's an interesting one. Like, I was at last week at an expo in London, the Sales Innovation Expo, and I see there's some people on here this afternoon who are at it. You're very welcome. And I suppose there's one other deliverable here, or there's one other thing that struck me when I was at that conference. And, it was great, 2 days, I was chatting at it, but I got a chance to talk to lots of people who came to see the conference. And what struck me, because I would be talking to people, a lot of people running their own business or doing the marketing for a business, and I would ask them, obviously, how they generated leads. And what struck me was that most of the people that I talked to had one way of generating leads. So some of them focused on SEO, but it was SEO only, search engine optimization, or else maybe they used AdWords, but it was AdWords only, or they relied on referrals, but it was referrals only. And I would just say that's a very dangerous thing to do in business. Like, I've been in business a long time, and I've seen businesses that relied purely on AdWords to generate business, and then all of a sudden Google changed the rules, their AdWords traffic stopped, and their business, leads just stopped instantly. I've seen the same happen multiple times for people who focused on search engine optimization to bring in traffic to their site and leads. And again, Google changes the algorithm, and all of a sudden you're just not there, and the tap just gets turned off in relation to leads. So that was just something that struck me over the 2 days. So this is another way. So if you're sitting there and you have, you're generating leads, okay, but you only have one method of generating leads, you should have more than one method of generating leads. You shouldn't really have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. So this is another way to generate leads that will complement whatever you're doing. And it kind of gives you a little bit of insurance in case the other method, goes down for whatever reason. Okay, so we'll get through there's 4 stages in the social selling playbook. First is to build out our network. So from a standing start, how do we build this really good network with all your ideal prospects? And then through step 2 and 3, we're going to make sure they're aware of you, but not only aware of you, but, if you shared pictures of your cat, to be aware of you, but really they're aware of you and they regard you as an expert, somebody they can trust. And then we're going to see, how can we take this relationship offline and get on the phone? So that's really, that's the flow of what we're going to go through now. Okay, so building your network, right? It all starts with the profile. So before when I work with a client, before we do anything, the first thing we do is look at their LinkedIn profile. And a lot of times what you'll find when we look at somebody's LinkedIn profile is that it's all about themselves. And that, it's like a CV, and that might instinctively make sense to people, but really your LinkedIn profile needs to be about the people you're targeting, not about yourself. It really has to be client focused, because when you issue a connection request and somebody comes look at your profile, you really want these people, when they read your profile, to instantly understand or agree or come to the conclusion that you understand their work. You understand the problems that they face in their daily work, that you can solve the problems that they face in their daily work. So it's really all about what you can do for the clients. They don't actually care about you. They care about what you can do for them. So that's the overarching principle to how you update your LinkedIn profile. So we go through it. There's a couple of key elements. Obviously, you want a good profile picture. Doesn't need a professional one, just a headshot with you looking kind of friendly and approachable. But the next thing after that there is your LinkedIn headline. And your LinkedIn headline is critical, because that's what everybody sees. When you issue a connection request, they will see a picture of you and they will see your LinkedIn headline that goes with the connection request. So again, your LinkedIn headline shouldn't say that you are the CEO of your company or something like this, because that really doesn't really mean anything to the people. Like, you want to really make sure your LinkedIn headline has a benefit for them in it. You really just, like, it needs to immediately scream to the person that you're trying to connect with, you know, I understand you, I understand your problems, I can bring benefits to you. And so that's what your LinkedIn headline has to do. Now, if you look at there on my website, webworks.ie, how to craft a great LinkedIn headline, there's a fairly extensive blog post there that takes you through how to craft a LinkedIn headline. But really, you know, the simplest thing is just, I do X for, you know, I help accountants get new clients, or I help whoever your target is achieve a certain benefit. Like, if you just apply that very simple principle, you know, it'll be better than most LinkedIn headlines you see, or most headlines you see on LinkedIn. But the LinkedIn headline is critical. It's the first thing people see. You know, we use the LinkedIn headline again and again. You'll see how important it is as we go through this webinar. So really focus on your LinkedIn headline. After your LinkedIn headline, the next most important section is the summary section. And again, that's where, you know, I wouldn't be telling people about all the degrees you have and all that kind of stuff. Really, what you want to do again is, this is your chance. You know, the summary gets read a lot. You know, I always position it at the top of the profile. You know, get a case study or two in there. You know, get a testimonial in there. But really, again, when somebody comes and looks at your profile, they have to leave, having read your profile, they have to be absolutely sure that A, you understand the person's business, and you understand their problems, and you can solve their problems, that you can bring benefits to the client. So that's really what your profile is about. So have a look at your current profile. If it just reads like a CV, all about you, I am, I did, you know, that's no good. You need to talk about your client, and you need to talk about how you solve problems for your client. So your client will read your profile and want to be connected with you because they can see a benefit in it for themselves. Now, there's lots of other elements to your profile as well, testimonials. So you need to update your profile as completely as you can. Like, the three key sections initially are, as I said, the headline, the picture, and the summary. You know, as well in your summary, make sure you put in strong call to actions. No point, sometimes when you reach out to connect people, you know, they might go, I want to talk to this person now. So put something in your profile that will tell them how to do that, you know, an email address or a phone number. So a strong call to action into it. But really have a long look at your profile, because your profile has to be your client focused. It can't be about yourself. So once you kind of get your profile up and running, then we want to start building your network. And before you start building your network, you need to kind of define who is your ideal prospect. And you need to do this based on the criteria that LinkedIn gives us to play with. And the criteria that you get there are things like you see here: geography. So where they're located, job title, you know, HR manager, HR director, industry, healthcare, you know, business, seniority level, function. I need to target people in companies that are at least 200 plus. So you need to sit down and think, well, who are the people I want to target, and use the terms that you get from, you know, you use the criteria that you get from LinkedIn you know, to define that. What we also want to do at this point early on in the stage is, like, we want to target, you know, your prospects. So the important thing now is to join groups where you're familiar with LinkedIn groups. I know they have a kind of a bad reputation, but, you know, Microsoft is working and is rehashing the groups. But for what we're trying to achieve today, it's very important, and I'll explain later on why you need to think about your prospect. You've sat down, you've defined your prospect. Now you want to look at your LinkedIn groups, do a search for groups, and then find the groups where you think your prospects will be members of. So it's not a group that you yourself would want to join. So if you're targeting accountants with a service, you want to join a group that accountants would be in. If you're targeting HR people, then you want to target you know, groups that HR people with. So it's not about you, it's about your clients. So find the groups where your prospects are possibly hanging out and join them. Now, recently LinkedIn upped, you know, you're probably already in a few groups, but recently LinkedIn upped the amount of groups you can be in, you know, the total number from 50 to 100. So, you know, you've plenty of scope there to, you know, to join lots and lots of groups. So it's very important. Think about your ideal prospects. Think, what groups would they be in, and go along and ask to join. So then at this stage now, so you've joined all these groups, and now you've got your LinkedIn profile is all singing and dancing, client focused. So now we want to start reaching out and connecting with our ideal prospects. And this is where we end up what we see here, which is the LinkedIn advanced search. So it's a quick question there from Ian. Would you advise, I'm just hosting this one by myself today, so I don't have any assistance. So I'll get that question at the end, but it's a good question, and I do cover it. I'll cover that at the end. What we see here, and this is critical, what you see in front of you here is the LinkedIn advanced search. Now, to get this, you need to get one of the premium versions of LinkedIn, like Sales Navigator. Like I have Sales Navigator. If you're not using Sales Navigator now, you can get a month's trial of it, and it's really, really worth it. Now, there's lots of great benefits to Sales Navigator. I'm just focused on this one, which is the LinkedIn Advanced Search, and this really is, from a lead generation point of view, this is a thing of beauty, because this is how you're going to find your prospects, and this is where the real power of LinkedIn comes to place. Comes into play. Like I've met lots of people who are LinkedIn who didn't realize they could, use this search, and this is critical because we're talking about a LinkedIn marketing campaign. But really, from a marketing perspective, and this is regardless of any type of marketing you're doing, Dan Kennedy, who is a really good kind of nose-to-nose, toes-to-toes salesman who writes a lot about sales and marketing, he will tell you that 80% of the success of any marketing campaign, and this is regardless of the platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, if you're doing a mail shot, but 80% of the success is set by, are you targeting the right people? Because if you're not targeting the right people, you're snookered, like, no matter what. Like, there's a good story, and people who heard me at the expo have heard this, but it's worth repeating. It's a good story with this guy, and he was setting up a restaurant, and somebody came along and says, listen, I'll grant you one wish. You give, just name anything you want, one wish that you think will help to ensure that your restaurant is a really good success. Pick whatever you want. And so your man thinks about it, he's thinking, well, do we need the best chef in the world or the best ingredients? Or maybe it's location. Maybe if I have the best location, that will guarantee the success of the restaurant. But really, when it comes down to it, what guarantees the success of your restaurant is a hungry crowd. Because if people are hungry, they'll eat. Even if they're not mad keen on what it is you're selling, or they find it's a little bit pricey, if they're hungry, they'll eat. But if they're not hungry, they won't eat. And so, really that's just stories just to really emphasize the how important it is in marketing to be talking to the right people. If you're talking to the right people, even if your sales pitch is a little bit off, half-baked, you have a fighting chance. But if you're talking to the wrong people, it doesn't matter what you're saying, you're snookered, you're going nowhere. So this advanced search in LinkedIn, you get it through the Sales Navigator, really is, it's really, really useful tool. This is actually how I myself got into doing LinkedIn campaigns, because originally, and I still do Facebook campaigns for people, Facebook ad management. And back in the day, quickly tell the story about how I was approached by a dentist who had this failing practice, just took over a failing practice and wanted to relaunch it. I wanted to use Facebook to launch it. And she had an orthodontic service, like she was selling braces. So she came to me and we ran a Facebook campaign. This is 3 or 4 years ago. So we ran a Facebook campaign and we really threw the kitchen sink at it. We ran the Facebook ads, and that drove people to a landing page. And on the landing page, there was a video of the dentist there, and she was kind of explaining about her orthodontic service and inviting people to, fill in a form to get more information on the orthodontics. Having done that, she then these people were put into a kind of an email autoresponder sequence where they got 5 emails, one every 2 days, each email with another video linked to another video that explained a little bit more about the orthodontic service. So there was, which kind of nurtured the lead along the way, and then there was a pitch for a sale at the end of that sequence, and it worked really, really well. For less than a spend of €1,000, much less than the spend of €1,000. In that first month, we generated €45,000 worth of business. So that was a really good success. And in about, a couple of months later, we repeated the exercise and it worked again, just as successful. So then that dentist, she then put me onto a friend of hers who was in a different area. And we again ran that campaign. This was another dental practice owner. We ran that campaign and it worked really well. So she made money. So that was great. So I'm thinking I need to advertise my services to more, because this really works. So I want to find more dental people to, give this service to. So that was grand, but at the time, like to say, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. All I knew was Facebook. That's all I did. Like lots of people, I had a LinkedIn profile, but I never looked at it. It was kind of set up, connected with families and friends, and that was really the height of it. So I spent a month or two on Facebook, hammering away, trying to connect with the kind of people that would want to buy this service. And I ended up talking to a lot of people who are dentists and things like this here, but I wasn't talking to people that ran dental practices. Dentists themselves just clocked in and out for the day. If they didn't own the practice, generating leads for the business wasn't a concern. So after 2 months of kind of plugging away at this, spending money on Facebook ads, was getting nowhere, and that's when I thought, okay, let's have a look at LinkedIn. And I went over and using the advanced search, then I ran this search, and so you can see the criteria that we have here. You can see that I want to talk to down here owners, and then I had partners and some other criteria in there. They're in the hospitality sector. The word dentist is in their profile because a lot of people that own dental practices were dentists back in the day. And I was targeting the UK for that was the geography. So instantly I ran this search, and then instantly it produces a set of results. Now, the results are different now in that slide. Back in the day when I did that, it produced a list of nearly 900 search results, and the vast majority of them were dental practice owners. So that's the real power. Like, if you take nothing else away from this webinar, like, that's the real power of LinkedIn. If you can define your prospects, by the criteria that we've just outlined there, geography, job title, company size, then, and you can find them on LinkedIn, then LinkedIn, this is a gold mine. That advanced search is a gold mine. So if you haven't done it yet, sign up for Sales Navigator, sign up for the month's free trial, and get stuck into this, into the advanced search, because it'll just, it'll bring up all your prospects, and also you opens up this path between you and all your prospects. And from here, then you can start issuing connection requests and kind of kick on from here. But this is the real power of LinkedIn. And so this is, if you could do this, if you could run this search and you can find lots of people, that meet your criteria of your ideal prospect, then everything from here on in should be really useful and really interesting to you, because a whole world of opportunity has just opened up. So, okay, so now that we've got our profile singing and dancing, and now we've run our search and we found all these potential ideal prospects. So that's great. So now we want to start issuing connection requests. Now, as I said, when I do this for my clients, a lot of times we're targeting, quite regularly, 1,000+ people. Now, we'll not do it all in one go, but there's a lot of people that we're going to reach out to. Now, even though over time, this is going to be what you might call a one-to-many conversation. Like, so on behalf of the client, I'm communicating with hundreds, possibly thousands of people. I want every one of them to believe that this is a one-to-one conversation between them and my prospect, or if you're doing this for yourself, between you and the people you're targeting. So it has to feel, because what we're talking about here is building relationships. So the first thing, it has to feel like a one-to-one. So with that in mind, like, LinkedIn comes along, yourself, if you ever issue a connection request or if you get one, there's a default script, and you do not use that. So when you hit connect, LinkedIn will offer you a kind of default script like this. Don't use it, because people know that's the default script, and don't use it. You want to get like, I'll always put, like, the script that I will use is not very complicated, but it just has to feel like conversational. Hi, the person's name. I was just reading your profile here on LinkedIn. Very interesting. Thought it'd be great to connect. Thanks very much, John. Look forward to hearing from you, John. But something like that, that's just, free flowing, conversational, but it feels like a one-to-one conversation. Feels like you have just, that you've just taken a notion to contact this one person directly based on their profile or whatever. So it's very important not to use the default scripts that LinkedIn supply. Now, obviously, you're thinking, hold on, John, if we're going to be connecting hundreds of people, that's an awful lot of work, in the sense of having to change the script, copy paste in the script, potentially hundreds of times. And you're right, there's no getting around it. There's a lot of work in it, but it's worth the effort, because it will dramatically increase the amount of, the success rate you get. So from every 100 that you could connection request you put out there, instead of getting a 30% success rate, you get up to 40, 50%. So it does make a huge difference, and it kicks the whole thing off. As I said, we want people to feel like they're having a one-to-one conversation with you. So again, here's a kind of a small example of the kind of script that I would use. I just looked at your profile and thought it'd be great to connect here on LinkedIn. Just something simple. Just the key thing is to get the name in there, make it feel conversational, make it keep it friendly and all that. So when you're doing this, because as I said, ideally now you're going to be doing this, and hopefully you've got hundreds of potential targets there to reach out to. Ideally when I do it anyway, I look for a 40 to 60% connection rate, or acceptance rate. So for every 100, I'm looking for 40 to 60 people accepting it. So what I tend to do is I tend to issue 100 connection requests, and then I'll sit back and wait 24 to 48 hours, and I'll see what kind of response I get back. Now, if it's not working out, as if the acceptance rate is not working out as I hoped, the first place you should look is your headline. That's where I find you get the biggest bang for your bucks, in the sense that tweaking the headline and then doing your next 100 connection requests. If you get that tweak right, it tends to work the best. It tend to get the best result from that. So certainly the headline is the first place I'd look and tweak that, and then after that, if that doesn't work out, maybe then look at the the summary and the rest of your profile. Assume that your picture is fine. So again, if you're not getting the, don't just go issuing out hundreds and hundreds of connection requests over the space of a couple of days in rapid succession. Do 100, sit back, wait 24 to 48 hours, and just see what the acceptance rate is. And then, if it's acceptable, then get on with the rest of them. If it's not, then tweak, but start off with the headline. I find that you get the best, tweaking the headline, tends to work the best. Right then. So now that we've issued all these connection requests, right? And hopefully we've got a very good acceptance rate. So lots of people have accepted it. So now really what we want to do now is we've kind of opened the road. We've kind of opened this channel between us and our clients, or us and you and your potential prospects. So now you want to start using that. You want to start filling. You want to start now working on the relationship, building the relationship. Julian there's asking about the risk and pitfalls of paid linked ads. I just quickly on Julian, I don't use, now certainly something I'm going to look at again. I haven't used, and I've done a lot of AdWords work in the past, a lot of Facebook ads. I haven't had great success with LinkedIn ads to date, primarily because they were very expensive. Now, I believe things have changed in that front, and I haven't used them in a year or two now, to be honest. So it's certainly on my very long list of things to do is to get back in there and have some more experimenting, because I know a lot has changed in the LinkedIn platform. So, that's something I'm going to look at again. But I haven't, I personally haven't had huge success with LinkedIn ads over the years, but I haven't tried them in a long time. So that's just, that's the kind of the short answer on that one there. But I says there's something I'm going to look at again. It is definitely something I'm going to look at the next couple of months to see if things have improved in that area. So again, so now so we've issued all these connection requests, and now we want to start. Now we want to start building, creating the relationship, building the awareness, and the way we're going to do that is through content. So again, just as a kind of as a follow-on to Julian's question, so what we're not going to be running here is LinkedIn ads. What we're going to be doing, this is all based around content sharing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get you, because when you share stuff now, you're going to share content into your news feed, and then LinkedIn will pass that out to your connections. And so really they'll get to see your content. And so really the rest of the strategy is based around a content sharing strategy. Now, the key thing about this is that, and we'll cover this over the next few slides, is that when you share a piece of content, as you see it here, we talked about the headline earlier on. So this is a bit of content I shared from HubSpot a while ago into my news feed. And the important thing to see here is that what everybody sees is my name, they see my picture, and they see my headline. And so that's critical here. So basically, because even if people don't read what it is I'm sharing, and a lot of times I'm sure they don't, but every day that if this share appears in their newsfeed, they're going to see my name, they're going to see my picture, and they're going to see my headline. It's like putting your business card, and remember, these are your ideal prospects that are seeing this, not just anybody. So it's like putting your business card in front of them every day and them getting to see it. And again, if they click and read it, even better. But just by sharing every day, by sharing content into the newsfeed, you're starting to build awareness of you. So they're starting to build, get to know you. Also, with all the groups that we joined, we're going to, every once a week, you're going to share content into the group. So if they're members of the group, then there's a chance then they will then get to see the information you've shared into the groups as well. So really, so from here on in, what we're doing is going to be sharing content. What you don't need to do, and what you might be worried about is, do I need to share, does it all have to be your own content? And it doesn't, because like if you can see that last page, just go back that last slide. That's a piece of content I shared, but that's from a site called HubSpot. It's a good marketing site. So there's no way, I have a relatively small team working with me. There's no way we could generate really good content every day. So, it would just be impossible. If you're part of a large organization, that might be feasible, but it wouldn't be feasible for me, and most of my clients couldn't do that either. But that's actually not a problem, because you want to be sharing content from lots of different sources, because remember, what we want to do is raise awareness of people. We want people to become awareness and also to trust us. So if you're going to be bringing content from other sources that aren't just from you, and even content that if the person that you're sharing it with, uses that content in some way, and there's no possible benefit for me back out of it, I think that enhances the trust element. So I share stuff about marketing, but I'm connected to a lot of business owners. A lot of people are involved in, trying to generate leads and all that there. But I will share all kinds of articles, not just stuff that relates to the service I offer. I'll share, the criteria that the most important criteria for the content that I share is this useful to my prospects? And if it is, then share it, because you want to. Because if you're constantly sharing stuff that's useful for these people, and they're seeing it in their news feed, and they're going, "Oh, John McGarry shared that piece again." And if they're constantly seeing me bringing information to the table or to the news feed that's useful to them, then there's the trust and all that kind of stuff starts to build up. And then obviously if I share stuff about marketing, expertise builds, but trust is built up by just sharing content across a range of topics but the key thing about it all is that it's useful to the people you're targeting. And every time they see that content in your newsfeed, they see your name, they see your picture, and they see your headline. And that is just, for building awareness, this is just really, really useful. Now, the key thing is, LinkedIn also is another way of, it is an internal messaging system where you can message your first degree connections. And we use that there to build awareness as well. But I'll talk about that specifically later on because we use that in a very particular way. Now, as I said, just to go back, it's very important to talk about content that you share. As I said, normally in an ideal world, when I share content, it's kind of a 4-to-1 ratio. 80% of what I share will be other people's content, and then 20% will be my own. Now, some people can't even make that 20%, but that's fine. But the idea is that you mix it up. Now, outside, there's loads, the World Wide Web is full of blogs, full of websites where there's really interesting articles on all kinds of topics. So you will have no problem. I haven't found a niche yet where I haven't been able to find, content to share on behalf of my clients, to their prospects. Now, a good tool that you can use down there, you can see it mentioned here, feedly.com, feedly.com. Now, there's a paid version, but the free version of that works perfectly well. It's a content aggregator. If you go to feedly.com, you can put in a few topics, a few keywords, the kind of content that you're looking for. And if you put it in there, then Feedly will find you all the blogs and websites out there where you can find really good pieces of information. So what I normally do is I use Feedly on a Sunday night. I will, do research for my clients for the content that I'm going to share on their behalf over the week. I'll use Feedly, then I'll get, maybe 5 URLs, 5 website addresses of different content. I'll put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then I'll send it to my clients just so they can look over it and say, yeah, they're happy for me to share that, because when I do this work, I'll be logged into their profile. So they're happy for me to share this on their behalf. So that's really, so if you use a tool like Feedly, finding other pieces of content isn't difficult. And there's other tools out there you might be using, but Scoop It, I think, is another one. But I use Feedly, and as I said, you don't even need to use the paid version. The free version of it works really well. So find content, that's out there. Make sure it's interesting. Make sure that it's, thought-provoking, interesting, bring something to the table. And if you're sharing that there, and even though it's not your content, your name, your picture, your headline will be above it all the time. So that's one. Now, when we're sharing content on Facebook, you have to be at this every day because you have to be consistent. Like as I said, this system is not a new system. It's been, it's been tried and tested and optimized over years. And the one thing that's come through all that there, the one key point is that you have to be at this every day. There's no point in going mad on LinkedIn and sharing content every day for a couple of weeks and then letting it go for a couple of months. This is, if you decide to implement this becomes part of what you do every day, because you have to be at it every day, because there's lots of people competing for, the attention of your prospects, and people have short memory. So you need to be at this every day posting stuff so that every day there's a chance that your prospects will see your article in their newsfeed. And again, they're just reminded that you're here, you exist, and this is what you do. So, you need to be just at it every day. That's really, really important. Now, unfortunately, people aren't, somebody now that spends a lot of time on LinkedIn, I'm going to slide ahead. People aren't on LinkedIn as much as they are on Facebook. I read an article in the Times there I think it was from 2 years ago, and it says that people are on LinkedIn over a month, only for in total on average about an hour or two. So spread over the whole month. So they're not on LinkedIn a huge amount of time. So that's another reason why you have to be sharing all the time, every day, because you need to maximize your chances of your article, of them actually seeing your article. But the same is not true of Facebook. People are on Facebook for, a lot, an hour a day at least. Now, just because people have you're on LinkedIn here and it's B2B, but these people, still have lives outside their business, and they will most likely have Facebook accounts. And the one thing that LinkedIn and Facebook have in common is that you need an email address when you're setting up your, when you're setting up both your LinkedIn and your Facebook account. So this is something that this wasn't part of the original strategy, but, with my Facebook background, it's something that I've added in, and it works very successfully. What you can do is you can export your LinkedIn connections. And when you do that, you get all the email addresses of all the people that, that you're connected with, your first connections. You can then take just the email addresses. That's all you need is the email addresses. And then if you have a Facebook account, you can go to Facebook, and in the ads manager in the back, you can import all those email addresses into Facebook. And what Facebook will do, it will look at the list. So let's say, just to make the maths a bit easy, let's say you have 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, and you export them, and you import that 1,000 email addresses as a CSV file into Facebook. Facebook will look at all them email addresses, and it will see where it can match where those email addresses were used in the creation of the Facebook account. And once that's done, it will give you a list back of that. So let's say, it doesn't, so the list will just be, you give the list a name when you create it, so you'll call it my LinkedIn connections. And once you do the import into Facebook, Facebook will come back and tell you that list of yours, Facebook connections, now has 750 people in it. Now, it doesn't tell you who the 750 people are. All you know is that of the 1,000 people that you imported, it matched 750. And I find like a 70% match rate is common enough. So now you have that in Facebook. So if you want, if you're really keen to build awareness, you can now take the same content that you're promoting on LinkedIn, and you can then take that and promote it via Facebook. Now, it's slightly different because you have to pay for an ad. You can create an ad on Facebook that says, here's a bit of content, I'm going to promote this to Facebook, and the target for this ad is that list that you created, the list that Facebook created of the 700 people that matched your LinkedIn connections. So, and this is really, even though this is not an organic strategy in the sense you have to pay for this within Facebook. But if your list is only 1,000 or 2 or 3 big, it really is cheap as chips. And if you think how focused, how targeted that list is, like, it's money really well spent. And the chances of the people seeing your content on Facebook, just because they're on Facebook so much more than they're on LinkedIn, is much better. Plus, also, you're paying Facebook to do it. So again, they're not obliged, but the chance of them actually getting your information into people's newsfeed again is much enhanced. So that I find to be very successful. Plus, your prospects are always impressed. All of a sudden now, instead of just seeing you on one platform, they see you on multiple platforms, and that just seems to impress people. So it's just it's just the way it is. So it's something you can do with your LinkedIn connections, export them, bring them into Facebook, and then start advertising on Facebook to them. Now, you can also when you export your LinkedIn connections, you also get, if they added a Twitter handle. So if these people are on Twitter and they added that information when they were registering for LinkedIn, you'll see their Twitter name. My Twitter name is @profit_per_click. So if if I was connected with you and you exported that, you would then see my Twitter handle. Now, what you can do on Twitter, if you're really keen, is because you want to build awareness. So what you can do is you can then, on Twitter, you can then, using the information you have here, find me, @profit_per_click. And then what you can do on Twitter is you can create a Twitter list. And on Twitter, then you can create a Twitter list of all your LinkedIn connections. So you add all your Twitter handles of all the people that whose details you got from LinkedIn. So you might have a list, and it does vary. Lots of people don't have Twitter accounts, but for ones that do, create what's called a Twitter list. And then when you go onto Twitter, instead of reading the tweets and everything from all of the people that you're connected to, that you follow on Twitter, you can just look at the tweets and all that there from the people on your LinkedIn list. And then that just makes it much easier to follow the people that you're following from LinkedIn. And then if they tweet something, you can reply in it, you can like it or share it. And if you do that, I guarantee you they'll notice, because I've got about 14,000 odd Twitter followers. When I go to Twitter, I don't ever really look at my general news feed in there, because there's just far too much going on there. What I look is the notifications, and that tells me who responded to my anything that I tweeted about, like who liked it, who retweeted or whatever. And I always will notice that. So it's very easy to find. So if people that remember, we're talking about your ideal prospects here. So if they have a Twitter handle and you're now following them on Twitter, and then you start replying to what they're tweeting about or liking it, they will notice it. They will go, oh, there's your man or woman, tweeting, replying, and they will be pleased by that. And they'll go, oh, I know him on LinkedIn, or maybe I see his stuff on Facebook. But this idea, what we want to do is build awareness, growing all the time. So there's 2 extra strategies you can use, Twitter and Facebook, to really, to do this awareness building exercise, to really take it to the next level. But in all of this communications, what's really, because a lot of people sometimes think because it's LinkedIn, you kind of have to be a bit poke-faced about it. It's B2B and everybody's very serious and all that there. But never forget, it's relationship building we're doing here, but it's people at the other end of all of this, and people have personality. So keep it social, keep it friendly, keep it entertaining. Obviously, don't be afraid to use a bit of humor or whatever. It's like, obviously avoid politics, religion, and such hot topics. But apart from that, there, a little bit of personality, a little bit of humor, loosen up a bit, because, that will be more engaging for people. People will find that more engaging. So again, just to emphasize, that on the content sharing bit, like, we've shown you ways how you can build awareness, through sharing stuff on Facebook, through sharing stuff on LinkedIn, through sharing stuff on Twitter. But then, so that'll build the awareness. And then, the expertise and all is established by the content that you share, and using Feedly like that there to find really interesting articles that these people will be interested in. So really, you really need to think long and hard about what kind of information would be of interest to the people you're targeting. And if you're sharing really expert information, then obviously you will benefit. You will be regarded as an expert because of that. Now, this expert status is really important. And here's another strategy that we use for it. Like we talked about how we create LinkedIn groups, or not how you join LinkedIn groups, the LinkedIn groups that your prospects are in. And you join them because it makes the advanced search that we showed you earlier on, it helps it find people for us. And we share content into them groups, once a week, instead of where we do it once a day into their news feed. Once a week, I will always share content into the groups that my clients are members of. But then you also want to create your own group. And this is really a positioning play to establish your own expertise. Because I suppose it's a play off a strategy. You might be familiar how nowadays lots of people are writing books. Like the whole book publishing industry has changed on its head, because so many people now want to write books on their topic of expertise, and they're not writing the books to sell and to make a profit. Like, I don't think they could care less if anybody never read a single page in the book. They're really, the primary function of writing the book is so that they can now establish themselves as an expert in their field. And the thinking behind it is, well, if you wrote the book on the topic, you must be an expert on the topic. So you'd be surprised now how cheap it is. And some of the books that you see people written, they're really just 10 blog posts. But really, all these people want is a book with a cover, a picture of them, a name, and a position on Amazon. So then that shows, I wrote the book on the topic, I must be an expert on the topic. And it's just a way of separating you from the crowd. It's a position in play to attain that status as an expert. So what can we do? So we have a little strategy that we do in LinkedIn, which kind of mimics it. So what we do is you create your own group on the topic. So we're not going to write the book on the topic. We're going to create a book on the topic, we're going to create a LinkedIn group on the topic. And then you can invite your connections in. So what we'll do is once somebody accepts your connection request, they get a message back saying, thanks very much, that's great. By the way, I run the group I personally run a group on B2B lead generation through social selling. If I connect with you, I will then invite you to join the group. And it's really just a way to position yourself as an expert in the field. But there's some other advantages, once you have that, like that's the main focus of it. But then there is other advantages to having people joining your group. You're in a position then to broadcast messages out to them, which get converted into email, which people will get via an email. So there's other reasons why having your own group is good. But really the core reason, it's all about establishing expertise. And if you created the group on the topic, then you must be an expert on the topic. And like creating a group on LinkedIn is very easy. It doesn't cost anything. So, that's something we'll always bring to play. And if I create a group on something, I'll make sure it's in my profile that, that I am I'm the admin or the owner or the founder of that group. So people know that I did that. So create your own group on LinkedIn. Great strategy to help establish your expertise. So now what we want to do is, so we talked about, so if you think about the scenario that we talked about, we want to get people, what we've done today is we've connected with hundreds of people. We've updated our profile. So it's client facing. We've used the LinkedIn advanced search to find hundreds of potential prospects that we can connect to. We've issued personal connection requests, and we've got them, we've got a high success rate in the sense of lots of people have accepted our connection. And then we've got busy every day sharing really useful information. And we've stuck to that every day, sharing really useful information to these people. And we've also, invited them to join our group. So all that work is going on. So remember, but ultimately, and so all the time, we're achieving several of our goals. We're building a network. We're building awareness of us. And it's not just any kind of awareness. We're building people's awareness of us as an expert, as a trusted advisor, in our field. So now, but remember, another objective was we wanted to get people on the phone. So earlier on, in one of the slides, I mentioned that LinkedIn has an internal messaging system. So this is, I'm sure you're familiar with yourself. When you logged into LinkedIn, if you have a message up in the top right, there'll be a little red icon or red button over the message icon saying you've got a message. And you can issue messages to your first connections. So what we do here, it's kind of a play. If you remember way earlier in the webinar, I mentioned about the dental campaign and how when people registered, put them through once you secured, somebody came along on the site from the Facebook ad, put their name and address in, and then we had this set of emails ready to go out, one every 2 days for 10 days, like 5 different emails nurturing the lead. So that was using what's called an email autoresponder system. And you could set that up and have that run automatically. So you kind of set it and forget it. And unfortunately, LinkedIn, the back end of LinkedIn doesn't have, such a facility where you can set it and forget it. But at the same time, we use the messaging system much like it is an email autoresponder sequence. And so really everybody that, that goes through our funnel will get 5 messages through the email messaging system. Now, as I said, this system is well tested. We don't want to send them the messages too closely together so that it feels like spam, and you don't want to send the messages with too much of a gap in between them so that people kind of forget about the last message. So really 2 to 3 weeks is the sweet spot. And what we do then is we use that internal messaging system to send out 5 emails or 5 messages with 2 to 3 weeks in between the messages. Now, and typically messages 1 to 3 will be much like this content we're sharing into people's news feeds. Like it's just bringing more value to the table, drawing people's attention to a really good blog post or a really good video on a topic or something like that. But again, messages 1, 2, and 3 are just bringing more value to the table. And it's really when we get into message 4 and 5 that what we do there is we actually then ask for a phone call. So we'll say on message 4, and the script can vary depending on the client's needs and what they're comfortable saying. But the general gist of it is, listen, we've been connected here on LinkedIn for a while. It's great to know you online, but I like to get to know my connections offline. Would you be up for a phone call, let's say next Tuesday between 10 and 12? And that's what message 4. So message 4 is really a request to get on the phone. And it's very important in that message that when we ask that we give a date and a time. Like, if you don't put that in, once you say next Tuesday between 10 and 12, it kind of, people feel obliged nearly to respond to it because there's a very specific date and time in it. So you'll get a much higher response if you put in a date and a time. And if you leave that out, you'll get a lower response. So message 4 is always that. So that's message 4. I said 2 to 3 weeks in between all the messages. Message 4, let's get on the phone. Some people like to, with some people they're comfortable with a kind of very open request in the sense that I just want to get to know me network, so let's get on the phone. Now, some people like to have a little agenda, just find that's an uncomfortable kind of phone call to have when there's no set agenda. So sometimes, if you have maybe a particular question or something, you can bring that in so there's some sort of agenda for the call. I suppose the important thing to say here is that this call it's not a sales call. We target these people, like they meet all the criteria of your ideal prospects, but that's not to say that they need your services now. Like the whole point of everything what we're doing is to position you so that these people are aware of you, so that when something changes in their life, when a vendor might let them down, or all of a sudden they need your services, who are they going to call? They were going to call the person that's been bringing all this value to the table. The person that have this relationship online. They're going to call you, or you'll be in a position to get that business. But as things stand at the moment, you don't know that they need your business. Now, obviously, if you get on the call and it becomes apparent that they do have an immediate need, you can use your head and then you can turn it into a sales call. But it's really important, if you just get on and immediately pitch for a sale that's not there and the answer is no, that's a very short call. And you don't really want that, because remember, the whole point about this phone call is to deepen the relationship that you've been building online. And obviously, we're still humans, and talking to people is the best way to deepen a relationship, short of actually meeting them. So it's really important not to see this as a sales call, that it's a call to extend that relationship, take it a relationship that was online, where you're being regarded as an expert, where you have all this trust, you built all that up, but you want to take it offline. And if this solves, you haven't done all that work, people are much more willing to get on the phone with you. This is a completely different scenario to you. One of the traditional methods of sales that we mentioned at the start of the webinar, cold calling, where the person can think of 100 reasons not to want to talk to you. Like, obviously, this is a completely different request. John McGarry wants to talk to you on the phone. Oh, I'll talk to him. Sure, I'm on his group on LinkedIn. He shares really good stuff. Maybe I got involved in a discussion that he started. I'm more than happy to talk to him. So it's a completely different call. So again, if it turns into a sales call, great, but just, don't go in there and launch straight into a pitch, because if you do that and the answer is no, it could be a very short call. So I said that's what message number 4 is. Now, message number 5, 3 weeks later, because either 2 or 3 things will happen with message number 4. Either they won't respond at all, either they respond yes or they respond no. Now, obviously, if they respond no, they come out of the system. They've said no, and that's fine. If they respond yes, that's great. They come out of the system as well because they responded yes. And, if I'm doing this on behalf of my client, I let them know you've got a call scheduled next Tuesday with this person. And then, but if they say nothing, like I don't leave it. 3 weeks later, I will then, message number 5 is a reminder of message number 4. Hello, sent you a message there a couple of while ago, looking to see you get on the phone, didn't hear back for you. It'd be great to talk. And maybe if, and then suggest another date and time. And by asking a second time, like as I said, this is well tested, you will get more responses from message from the second ask. So don't be afraid to ask twice, because you will always get people who will respond when on the second one who didn't respond on the first one. They were just thinking about it maybe without their head for whatever reason, and they didn't get around to it. And then you send them this reminder, they go grand, and they'll come back to you, be it yes or no. But you will always get a lot of yeses on the second one, even though they didn't respond to anything on your first request. So that's message 4 and 5, is getting people on the phone. Now, if at the end of that process there's a whole set of people that have never responded, like obviously you're keeping the LinkedIn, sharing every day going. But remember, you have these people's email address. Now, I don't cover it here, but I take that everybody else whose email we have from LinkedIn, who you're perfectly entitled to email, in a business related matter, and I would put them into some sort of drip feed, email system, as well as the sharing the content and keeping the whole content sharing thing going on LinkedIn as well. So even at that, you don't let it go. You keep plugging away, because even though people haven't responded to you, lots of people are stalkers. They kind of watch and they take it all in and they don't respond until it suits them. But these people can still come out of the woodwork later on and say, "Hello, John. There. Listen, I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while. I need your services. Can we talk?" And you've never heard from them before, even though they've been in your group, but they've never actually put their hand up before. So you keep it always going. But the key thing in this is message 4 and 5, use the internal LinkedIn messaging system, and then ask for a call. And that just goes over what we've already talked about. It's good to talk, as they say. Now, obviously, let's say, if you take a scenario like I've just did recently for somebody where we had, what we try to do as well is we try to, if you, let's say, get 500 new connections on LinkedIn, we don't ask 500 people to get on the call with you next week between 10 and 12, next Tuesday between 10 and 12. To make this whole thing manageable and to produce a kind of predictable lead flow, the way we will operate this system, take all them bits together, the way we operate this system is kind of demonstrated by the graph you see in front of you. Let's say, just to make the maths easier, let's say there's 500 people. We get 500 new connections. So you start off with 1,000 people to target, and 5 of them respond positively to the connection request. That's great. So then you immediately start, inviting these people into your group and sharing content and all that stuff. All this good stuff that we talked about is going on. Then what I'll do then in relation to the messaging and how we get people on the phone is we'll break them 500, that group of 500, down into 10 groups of 50. And then if you can see from this graphic that you see in front of me, there's the groups 1 to 10. That's our 500 people. And here's, this here's all the start when we're getting the profile all in order. But then from week 1, once we start issuing the connection requests and people start saying yes, and we have our 500 people in the bag, then I start issuing the 5 sequences, the 5 messages with the 3 weeks with the 3 weeks in between the messages. But I don't, as I said, I don't send everybody message number 1, week 1. As I said, the first week, the first group gets the message. The second week, the second group gets the first message. The third week, as you can see here, and that spreads out. And then what that means there is by this week here, by week 14, the first group gets, this is the request for the call. So this is message 4. Can we get on the phone? And you can see from here on in, as we go through the year, there's new people being asked for calls every week. And so hopefully then people come back and saying yes. So from about 3 months into this campaign, we're now starting to see it where all of a sudden now requests are going out to people that have been nurtured. We built up all that awareness, established expertise, all that good stuff is going on. And now we really start to reap the benefits in the sense that we are now scheduling calls with these people who, remember, are your ideal prospects. These are the kind of people that you've sat down and thought can really move the needle for your business. And now you've got meetings scheduled or phone calls scheduled with these people every week after that. And then, so that's really where the power of this system comes into play. And if you have lots of people, and where it works really well, if you can have 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 people in the funnel. Like this particular campaign was where I was targeting HR people. So we did and there was thousands of prospects for the client. The client is a kind of does pre-employment checks. So if you're hiring 50 people and you need to check their CV, I have a client that does that's kind of work that gets outsourced, and he does that. So this is the work we're now hooking up with and HR people would normally be the people that would look for his services, look for my client services. So this is kind of where we're at with this client. There's literally thousands of HR directors and managers on LinkedIn. We're building up his network, and you can see here now, he's now connecting and talking to HR directors every month from about 3 months in. And so instead of using AdWords, which is the main driver for the business, well, in complement, we're going to keep the AdWords, but instead of relying solely on AdWords, now he's building relationships directly with the people who make a decision about, what company to use when they're outsourcing this business. And he is now building up in a systematic way relations with them, as you can see here. And what we produce is 8 to 12 calls every month for this client on an ongoing basis. And as I said, so we did the first 1,000 and then once we get to about here, we'll start the process because we just didn't connect with everybody. We just targeted the first 1,000 people that LinkedIn gave us. Once we're about halfway through this campaign, I'll start issuing new connection requests for the second 1,000. And we just keep the whole thing rolling. So this really, in a sense, this graphic will give you a sense of how this will roll out for you. So if you can think about it, if you're sitting down now and lead generation is what you're about, think about in a 2.5 months time, if you take all the bits of this together and do it in a systematic way, then in about 2 or 3 months time, you can have 10 to 12 calls a month with your ideal prospects. And if you think about that, that's what, 130, 140 odd calls a year. Like, how many of them would you need to convert to make all this worthwhile? What's the lifetime value of these prospects? To justify the effort of this campaign that goes into it. Because, like as you said, LinkedIn isn't as sophisticated in the back end for Facebook. There's not that many tools to help you automate much of this. So a lot of this is manual, but it's worth the effort. This, as I said, this is a well-tried, a well-tested system. It builds the relationship that you need with the kind of people that you need to be talking to, and it does produce results. So that's we've gone over the hour. I hope that was informative. If you have any questions at all on any of this, don't hesitate to give us a shout. You can get me at any of these details here. I offer a free strategy session. So if you want, you can go to book a free strategy session with me where I'll take you through, we can talk about LinkedIn, your prospects, and see if LinkedIn is a platform that can work for you. And if you need training on this as well, we can also offer that. I have a group on Facebook called B2B Lead Generation using social selling. I'd be delighted if you pop along and search for that on LinkedIn. I'd be delighted to have you in the group. And again, I do share good information into that as well. So again, my name is John McGarry. Listen, I'd like to thank you very much for attending the webinar today. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and contact me.